Despite having a device release schedule that would terrify most other manufacturers, OnePlus still manages to come up with desirable, exciting smartphones on a shockingly regular basis. This is the OnePlus 6, and it comes, well, incredibly quickly after the OnePlus 5T, which you can see here. And there is a considerable difference between the two, not just in size, but in materials used. The OnePlus 6 is OnePlus's first glass-bodied phone, so it's glass on the rear and obviously glass over the front of the screen. There are design differences too. We've got a vertically mounted dual lens camera on the back. The fingerprint sensor is on the rear like it was on the OnePlus 5T, but this time they've done this really nice job of giving it a stadium design and also a nice chamfered edge, so it feels very comfortable under the finger. On the rear, you'll notice down here it says designed by OnePlus. Now, this hasn't been seen apparently on a OnePlus phone since the OnePlus One, and OnePlus is celebrating something of an anniversary. I think it's their 4th anniversary, and they're bringing back a few styling cues and things that made the original a little bit different. For a start, you've got the design by OnePlus, and in addition to this mirror black finish you see here, they're making a silk white version just like the OnePlus One. So they're really going back to their roots for the OnePlus 6. If we turn the phone over, you'll see that for a start the screen is massive. It's 6.3 inches, so it's really giant. It's a 2280 by 1080 pixel resolution, so 19 by 9 aspect ratio. And you'll see a notch at the top of the screen. In a future software update, OnePlus is going to allow you to get rid of the notch if you don't like it, but to be honest, we've not really worried about the notch in quite some time. Once you've used a phone with one for a little bit, you tend to ignore it. OnePlus says that it allows them to put the biggest screen they possibly can on the device, and it's hard to argue with that logic when it's 6.3 inches in size. There's also a very minimal chin down the bottom here. It's not like, say, the Honor 10, which has a considerably larger chin with a fingerprint sensor. This is actually very well proportioned. You also notice there's thin bezels around the side here. So just in comparison, we've got a Galaxy S9 Plus here. You can see that size-wise the two are very similar. So if you're considering an S9 Plus, then the OnePlus 6 is also logically a phone you should be looking at too in terms of size and performance, because you've got a Snapdragon 845 processor inside here, along with 8 GB of RAM if you choose this, the most expensive version. There's also a 6 GB version with 64 GB of storage space. So there's a difference between the two of about $50, so it's really not that much of a stretch to say go for the larger version, it'll last you longer. So there's something we want to point out with the control system here. You can use Android as you would do normally, with swipes up here, with the home button and the back button and the open apps button as you would do normally. OnePlus has also added a gesture control system, and you'll find that by going into settings, buttons and navigation and gestures. So we'll turn this on, and it works a little bit like the iPhone 10 if you've ever used that, by removing the buttons at the bottom of the screen for Android, and instead you have a system where you swipe up from the screen, hold, and you'll get your open apps, swipe up from the bottom of the screen to go back to home, open up the browser, and it's a swipe up from the bottom to go back or forward, and then a swipe up to go back to the home screen. So the idea is that it gives you more screen real estate because you haven't got the Android buttons at the bottom, and obviously it's a little bit different. We're not absolutely convinced because it's a bit of a pain to swipe up, because you have to be very careful to swipe up from the bottom of the screen to go backwards, so it's easier when there's a back button, to be honest. But it's still a nice addition if that's the sort of thing that you want to use to differentiate your phone from others. But we would probably stick with the Android buttons. It's Android 8.1 running on here with Oxygen OS over the top, so it's very similar to standard Android, apart from things like Shelf, which is OnePlus's shortcut menu, and there's sort of additional features that you can use here. So it's quite nice. You can switch it off if you don't like it. The camera on the OnePlus 6 dual lens, a 16 megapixel and a 20 megapixel lens. It'll take portrait shots. It'll also shoot slow motion video, another nod towards a current trend with the Galaxy S9, but this here only shoots 480 frames per second. It doesn't go up to 960 frames per second, and it does 480 at 720p. So it's not going to slow the world down quite so much as you will do with the Galaxy S9 or the Huawei P20, but still you'll get a good result out of it. So the OnePlus 6 has arguably got it all. There's plenty of power, there's a massive screen, it looks brilliant, we love this mirror black finish. But does that mean you're going to be paying a lot more for it? OnePlus is after all known for its competitive prices. Yes, it's more expensive than the OnePlus 5T, but not really much more expensive. You're going to pay $530 for the 6GB and 64GB of storage space version, which is very good. You'll pay $580 for the 8GB, 128GB of storage space. And that's the model we'd recommend you get, just because it's going to last you longer when you pay that much money up front. You get more storage space and more power. There's also a 256GB model, which is $630 if you really think you're going to run out of space in the near future. For the UK market, it's going to cost you £470 for the 60GB, £520 for the 8GB, and £570 for the 256GB storage space version with 8GB of RAM. So it's not hugely more expensive than the OnePlus 5T, but the prices are creeping up. And that's something we'd rather didn't happen, but we understand that quite often these things have to happen when you put the latest technology inside your phone. And it's very difficult to argue with a phone that still costs $400 less than, say, the Galaxy S9 Plus that we looked at here. That's going to cost you a lot more money than this, when this arguably does a very similar job.